What's up, guys? This is Brave, and I'm here to review the Salt-N-Pepa story that aired on Lifetime. I guess that's just a little movie that Lifetime decided to put together because I feel like there were a lot of pivotal moments that happened within this group that should have been in this movie, as well as Spinderella's input. But let's go ahead and start talking about this movie, okay? So we first meet the ladies. We see Sandy and Cheryl, because that is their government names. They're attending community college, and Cheryl was trying to get some other students to work at the same place that she did, which was Sears. She basically worked at the Sears call center. Sandy happened to be one of those students that took a pamphlet from her, and next thing you know, they're working together. So Cheryl's boyfriend actually wanted to be a rapper, and he thought they were going to be like a duo, Cheryl and Herbie. But he realized that his voice does not work well for any track. He's just not a rapper. So he convinces her that she needs another female MC on the track. So we see that Sandy got the job, and we also meet Kid and Play as well as Martin Lawrence. Now, I did know that they grew up together in some type of way, but I could not remember that they worked in the same call center. So that was pretty cool to see. I will say that the guy who played Martin, he looked old in the face, but he had the ears. Like, that's probably what got him the job, the ears. So the ladies become fast friends, and Sandy and Cheryl, they even go to a strip club, which Cheryl's like, that's not really her thing. But, Sandy, she likes to have a good time, and they go to this strip club, and this is when I realized that, okay, so Cheryl is like this really sweet Christian girl, and Sandra is like fun and bubbly. She, likes to live her life fully. So they have a conversation in the car, and Sandra's like, oh, well, I actually want to be a psychiatrist. And she opens up about her dad and how she really wants to, make him proud because he had passed away. And we find out that Cheryl doesn't even know what she wants to do. Like, she misses her classes sometimes because she doesn't know what she wants to do. So there has always been an internal conflict when it came to Cheryl, aka Salt, because she never really knew what she wanted to do in her life. And we're going to see a lot of that happen a little bit later. So after this, the ladies are having their first studio session, and it's terrible. Because, Sandy wasn't saying the words how Herbie wanted it. But this right here, it showed that there was always going to be a clash between Sandy and Herbie. Like, they just never got along. And we also see that Cheryl spends most of her time with Herbie. So she was one of those girlfriends, like, if you saw him, you saw her. So she never really, I feel like it doesn't seem like she really got to develop outside of that, her relationship. So being in Salt-N-Pepa, that definitely probably opened her eyes to a lot of other things. You know what I'm saying? So they finally come up with the showstopper, and it's on the radio. And after like 6 weeks, they perform at Dougie Fresh's old high school. The kids wasn't really rocking with them like that, but they ended up doing well, and the kids, they ended up liking them, because at first they wasn't giving them no play. They didn't want to hear what them girls had to say, but in the end, it all worked out. So that was good to see. So they do so well at this point, because clearly their song is gaining traction, that they have a performance, and we see that Martin Lawrence was their opener. And I'm like, yo, that's pretty cool that they always, thought to keep each other together, as far as like, if one of us is coming up, all of us is coming up. I think that is so amazing. And I actually wonder if all of them are still friends today, because I haven't seen anything with Salt-N-Pepa and Martin Lawrence, but I really wonder if they're all still friends today. That'd be pretty dope if they are. So we meet this random character after their performance, and it's a guy who like takes a picture of them, and he's like, oh yeah, my name is Sweet Tooth, and I want to possibly manage you guys. But after he takes the photo, like he just like walks away, and I'm like, okay, that guy's random. So Herbie and Cheryl, they end up having a meeting with the label, but who's missing? Sandy is nowhere to be found, because Herbie felt like she's so ghetto and he don't do ghetto, and he did not feel like she would be needed for this meeting. So the meeting goes well. They basically say, we're going to give you this amount, go ahead and do the tracks, and if we like it, we'll give you more money. So they get outside. Him and Cheryl are super happy about it, but then they discuss the money. And he's like, oh, well, I'm getting my 6 points. You can split your money with Sandy however you want, because he basically is trying to convince Cheryl that he created the group, he writes all the lyrics, so he deserves the 6 points. And I guess he was assuming that she would probably keep like 4 or 5 points and give Sandy 1 or 2, but she's like, no, I can't do that. She does just as much work as I do, and we're going to split it. So he's getting 6 points, Sandy's getting 3, and what's her name? Cheryl is getting 3. Right off top, they getting scammed by her own boyfriend. So after this, we learned that they end up going to a party. I believe it was the Crush Groove. I think it was like the premiere party or the after party, and Sandy has her eyes on LL Cool J, and that didn't work out, but she still ended up with a man out of this. She ended up dating Marky from the Fat Boys, and I'm like, oh, okay. So Sandy was really out here, being the hot girl, pulling the guys. Okay. So after they get their record deal, though, we do see a scene of them at Peppa's house, and it's so weird. I'm like, do I say Sandy? Do I say Peppa? I might be interchangeable with the names, honestly. So they have a conversation about them getting their record deal, and Cheryl is like, yeah, we got this record deal, girl. She's like super duper hype. But Sandy's like, well, I can't quit school because I have to become something. Like, she made a promise to herself that because her dad passed away, she would really put in the effort, to become something. I think she said like her sisters had really great jobs. I think one was like a geologist, and I can't remember what the other one was, but she really wanted to, prove to herself as well as her father that she could become something. So she's like, well, I could just take a semester off. And as we know, she never went back to school because the group took off. So after this, remember that guy Sweet Tooth that I mentioned? He hired some lookalikes to pretend to be the ladies, because at that point, Herbie had like booked them to, do a few performances at different clubs, and they get to this one spot and they're like, all right, so we're Salt-N-Pepa, and the bouncer is like, no, you're not. Salt-N-Pepa is already here. So the girls are pissed. Sandy is like, I gotta go tell my family not to come down here because clearly we're not performing. Herbie finds a way into the building, and he gets on the stage, takes the mic, and is like, these are not the real Salt-N-Pepa. They're frauds or whatever. He tries to run out, but Sweet Tooth ends up catching him because I guess he was moving too slow, and his boys beat him up. So Cheryl comes out, trying to be ride or die for her man. And it's like, get your hands off him, get your hands off him. Next thing you know, they punch her in the face. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Men can be so ruthless, yo. So after Cheryl, she got punched in the face and all that, we next see Herbie having a full team meeting. They look like they were in like the local burger spot, And we see Herbie, Cheryl, Sandy, I believe it was Herbie's brother, who's going to be the choreographer. We have JP, who's going to handle all of like their bookings as well as getting their image out there, because that's the reason why there were frauds that were out there, performing as them, is because they didn't have like their image anywhere. So nobody knew what they looked like. So we have JP, Herbie's brother. Oh, and then we meet a DJ by the name of LaToya. He wanted to add her in as their DJ. You can already tell the ladies they weren't feeling her, but they just took it as it is what it is. So now we get to the creation of the song Push It. And of course, Sandy thought that the lyrics were whack. She was not feeling it. One thing that I noticed in this scene is that Herbie was very controlling of how the girls moved, how the girls looked, how the girls ate, because baby girl was thirsty. She wanted something to drink. And like a lot of people, when they say they're thirsty, they don't want water. They want some juice, some soda, some liquor. They want something else besides water. And he's like, nope, you can't have nothing. We got to go ahead and finish these vocals, and we got to put this track down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Herbie is annoying. But I guess he was just trying to make the group the best that they could possibly be. So after that, we see the ladies in dance rehearsal. And this is where we see that LaToya is not a good DJ at all. Like, baby girl was not a great mixer or anything. She was just making all types of mistakes. And this is when Cheryl happens to notice that Herbie is taking a notice to LaToya, and he's showing her special attention. So we learned how the ladies actually got that signature haircut, that asymmetrical bob, and it was because Sandra was getting her hair done. And what happened was, I guess the perm that she was getting, the person had burned her hair out. So Cheryl came up with the idea of like, yeah, we're just going to cut off the sides, give you some lines, and I'm going to cut your hair, you're going to cut mine, and we're going to have matching hairstyles. And it worked for them because tons of ladies walked around with that asymmetrical bob just like them, okay? So they have another rehearsal. LaToya, she don't show up. Herbie ends up firing her, and the ladies are like, okay, cool, we don't need no DJ. It's just going to be Salt-N-Pepa. Pepper and salt. Nope. He ends up bringing in Spinderella, who happens to be 16. She said that her mom said it was okay for her to do this DJ thing, and she learned how to DJ from her boyfriend, right? The coolest part about this scene was that we come to find out that Play is actually the person who came up with their logo, which I never knew that. I never knew that Play came up with the S going into the P with the salt and the pepper that they always have on like their jackets and everything. That was pretty cool. And we do see that they take like a photo, and Herbie is like, Kid and Play is up next. And as we know, Kid and Play, they did have a career as well as they acted in movies, because they gave us House Party, okay? So, which is one of my favorite movies. So we see that they're on tour or whatever, they're performing and stuff. And Cheryl is the one, it looks like, to keep Spin in check, just because like Cheryl's in like a bubble bath. You have Sandy talking about she about to go out on the town. Spin comes in and she's like, ooh, I'm about to go out too. And Cheryl's like, no, you're not. You're going to go practice for 2 hours. And I'm like, okay. Like, but then again, I'm like, okay, I guess she did that because she was younger than them. So I'm like, okay, maybe like a year or two may have gone by. She's like, what, 17, 18 years old? Yeah, I'd probably try to keep her around, I would probably try to keep her around a hotel as well, rather than her going out partying. I get that. So, but here's the thing. Sandy went to the bar, and come to find out, who else is there? Herbie. He's there with some other woman. He tries to threaten Sandy, like, there's nothing to tell. Like, basically, she can't, just up and tell Cheryl, because he'll kick her out of the group. And she's like, I'm not telling her nothing that she don't already know. But she never mentioned it or said anything to Cheryl about this incident. The way that Cheryl finds out that her man is cheating, though, is because some other woman called her. Well, she called him, and Cheryl happened to pick up the phone, and she's like, oh, well, you might want to change the sheets that are at the studio. I'm like, absolutely not. Because after that, Cheryl, she still stuck around with his ass. I'm like, okay. Clearly, she was very weak for Herbie. Also, with them in that business deal, it would have been very hard for her to get out of that. So, we see the ladies, they're backstage. I guess they were on the road for some tour that they were on. I mean, we see everyone from, there's Heavy D and the Boys, there's MC Hammer, and all these people. And we see Spin, only thing we saw Spin do was go hang out with Heavy D and the Boys. And then we didn't see her for a while. Then we have Peppa, she didn't hang out with Heavy D and the Boys, did she? Or maybe it was MC Hammer. I can't remember. I think it was Heavy D and the Boys. Peppa, she ends up talking to someone named Lewis. I have no idea who he was, but he ended up asking her about the business side of things and, how y'all getting paid, whatever. And when she told him, she gave him the breakdown. He's like, nah, y'all need to renegotiate y'all contracts. Like, y'all getting scammed. And Sandra's like, I don't know how to do that. Just tell me what I need to say so that I can make this happen. And I'm like, okay. Now, I see this Peppa, at least she knew that, damn it, if I'm going to be around all these men who know about this business and they're, collecting checks, tell me what to say. I'm about to use my feminine wiles, and I am going to be like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you teach me how? And that worked out for them. Shout out to Peppa for that, so that they can get their paper right. So we did see they're in the studio, and Herbie, he's like, oh, I have to leave, probably to be with some other woman. And Cheryl doesn't think that she can do things on her own. Like I said, she had been with Herbie so much and so long, she just clung to him, and that was all that she knew. So JP was actually there, and he's like, no, you need to stay, you need to write, and you need to use your pen and your voice to, say something for women, so that way women can have, some type of expression versus what a man's opinion is, you know what I mean? JP also lets her know that he was leaving because he didn't like what the industry had become. He just wanted to say bye. So at this point, this is the transition of the group no longer relying on Herbie and Herbie's vision for them, and the ladies having a mind of their own and being able to write their own lyrics, which I think is great. So after that, we see that Sandy meets Tata and Cheryl meets Gavin. Peppa ends up getting pregnant by Gavin. I'm sorry, not by Gavin, by Tata, and he wasn't supportive at all. But as we know, that pregnancy led to the birth of her son, Tyran. We do see that the ladies are able to renegotiate their contract. And then we also see that there's a clip of Cheryl, she's like holding someone's baby, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe Peppa had the baby already? Nope, it was some other lady. And who is it? Oh, Herbie's baby mama, because he had a baby on her. So at that point, Cheryl is like, no, we're done. The only thing we're handling together is business. So therefore, she moves on from him. Okay, so now Cheryl is with Gavin, and they're having a baby. Now, this is the time that they are promoting the Let's Talk About Sex song, and actually, this is when Peppa meets Tretch as well. So, we see the ladies, they're at the Arsenio Hall show, and they're promoting their single, Let's Talk About Sex, and Arsenio ends up asking Cheryl, like, oh yeah, you're pregnant, and, oh yeah, you're probably having a baby with Herbie, and she doesn't correct him. So now Gavin, he pissed off because he knows that he just a regular dude, he ain't famous, he ain't got no connections, and he felt like in that moment, Cheryl should have been like, oh no, actually, this ain't Herbie's baby. I've actually moved on, and I'm dating someone else. And I mean, like, I understand why he would feel that way. So after that, the ladies are having their creative differences with Herbie. And at this point, it was time for them to part ways because they have learned a lot of things in this industry. They wanted to have their own image. They wanted to say what they wanted to say and not so much of what Herbie had to say. So, Tretch and Peppa, you guys, this was a very interesting scene when Tretch is basically, he's getting drunk, but he's literally watching every move that Sandy is making, like hella suspicious of her. And then, Sandy ends up making a call. I really should say Peppa at this point. Peppa ends up making a call to Cheryl. She's like, yo, I have an idea. And it's the idea for the song Shoop. And Cheryl is on her way to church. And she's like, okay, we can record it. And after that, Peppa and Tretch, they get into it. Because he thinks like she like snuck off and called some other guy or something. And she's like, I'm not trying to be sneaky. Like, I just went to, tell Cheryl about this idea I have for a song. I got really inspired. And he like got super pissed and threw a liquor bottle. And I'm like, I knew Tretch had a bunch of anger issues. But I'm just like, girl, you should have ran from the hill. You ran for the hills right then and there. So the ladies record Shoot with their babies on their hip, and Tretch, he ends up showing up and he apologizes, and I'm like, okay, here we go. He gonna say he gonna do better, but we know that he not. We see Shoot, it has blown up. The ladies are traveling all around the world. One thing I hated about this was like all the green screen performances. Like, I really miss like good biopic movies like Selena, The Temptations, The Jackson 5, The American Dream. Like, I miss those type of biopics just because I feel like the creators of those movies really took their time and they put in a lot of effort rather than this movie, because to me it just seemed very rushed. Like, at this point, like, why didn't we get a clip of them shooting the What a Man video? Why didn't we get a clip of them even shooting, all these other music videos that they shot? And like, where was their Grammy win? Like, they won a Grammy. I believe was it for Let's Talk About Sex or None of Your Business? They won a Grammy for one song. I can't remember what it was. And we should have seen a moment where they won a Grammy. Like I said, they cut out a lot of important things in this movie. So as these ladies are traveling around, they realize that they really miss their kids. They miss being at home. But, they gotta work. And we also learned that Salt does not like Tretch because of his anger issues. But Peppa, she's like, no, but he's really good with my son. And I will say this, throughout this movie and in real life, Tretch has been really good to her son as well as their daughter. And what I mean by that is, to this day, Tyran calls Tretch dad because that's the guy who raised him. And even later in the movie, we see that Tretch is like cooking breakfast for the kids. I did give them a side eye because the little girl was light skinned, and I'm like, Egypt is not light skinned. Egypt is a brown skinned girl. Why couldn't we find a little brown skinned girl to play her? But whatever. He seemed to be a very hands-on dad, but I do think that his anger issues were a serious problem with Tretch, and he should have gotten some help. But then again, this was the 90s? People were not really going to see therapists like that, like we are now. So we then see that, also Salt, she's no longer with Gavin. They broke up, so she became a single mom. But Salt is really questioning, what she really wants to do in life. Like I said earlier, she's having these internal conflicts if she really wants to do this whole rap career, if she wants to do something else with her life. So we see that they have this Essence performance, and Salt is like, hey, I promised the editor-in-chief that we would take out None of Your Business. She doesn't want to hear it. And Herbie and Peppa are like, nah, we're going to still perform that song. So they perform it. And of course, the editor-in-chief, Susan Taylor, she was pissed off. And this sends Salt into another spiral of her eating disorder. Now, what I realized is that Salt has these these moments where she, throws up her food that she eats. And it's whenever things get really hard with the group. And I hate that when things got hard with the group, she decided to, torment and torture herself in that way, because she then associated anything that was bad that happened. It must be the group. It must be the group. And I feel like regardless of how life turned, I wouldn't say that everything was because of the group that happened in her life. You know what I'm saying? So after this, we realize, of course, like I said, Tretch, he's a very jealous guy. He's verbally abusive, but Salt-N-Pepa, so I keep saying Pepper, Salt-N-Pepa, they did have to go to court because Herbie filed a case against them once they wanted to separate. And, Salt is like, hey, we would have given you everything, but you had to, get the courts involved in all this. And he ended up losing to them. So they ended up getting their name because, he trademarked it. They got their name. They got the right to move on from him and sign on to a new record deal. So the problem came with this last album that they were supposed to put together, because Peppa was partying. Peppa was having a good time. She wasn't exactly worried about going into the studio, unlike Salt, who's like, no, we need to be there. At this point, we do see that their last album, it didn't do well. But there were actually some label issues that happened as to why they didn't get a lot of promotion with that last album. But we didn't see that in the movie because this movie, it just kind of rushed their life. We rush and see that Peppa got married to Tretch. We rush and figure out that Salt, she's actually pregnant, because they have to do a tour now and they need the money. And she's pregnant on tour. And at one point she ends up falling, and she falls on her stomach, and the doctor is like, you need to stop, you need to relax. But she's like, no, I need to finish this tour. And I'm like, girl, it was time to sit down. Okay. So after this, we see that there is a separation with Peppa and Salt, because their lives are going in different directions. Because, Peppa still wanted to have a good time, but Salt, she was finding God, and she was more so focused in getting back into the church and staying there and leaving the rap life completely alone. So after that, we see that Peppa finally leaves Tretch. They get into an argument, and she's like, I can't do this anymore. So before she can even tell Salt that she's leaving him, Salt, she gives her the bad news that, hey, I'm done with this, and I don't want to do music anymore. And that pretty much was the end of their friendship as well, because Peppa ended up having a premonition about somebody dying. And it wasn't that, actual human was dying. It was that their friendship died. It was that the group died. Now, here's the thing also. The ladies did stuff outside of the group that I feel like could have been included in this, because once that separation happened, Salt, she ended up recording an album, but she never put it out, and she felt like it needed Peppa because, Peppa brings out another side of her. But like I said, the album never saw the light of day. Also, why couldn't we get, the performance of her performing with Kirk Franklin? Because she performed on Stomp, and that was a big hit, a huge hit. Stomp by Kirk Franklin, the remix, everybody was playing that song. If you was Christian or not, you was playing that song. They definitely could have included that in this movie, but they didn't. Peppa, she couldn't book any work because they kept thinking, oh yeah, if it's Salt-N-Pepa, yeah, but if it's just Peppa, we don't want you. She ended up starting to cut herself, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So then we get to the end of the movie, y'all, and we're at the VH1 honors, the hip hop honors, and they want to honor the girls. And this is the first time that they're going to perform in 5 years, I believe. And that's how the movie pretty much ended, with this huge performance of them. Like, right before the performance, they didn't say anything to each other. They just went out there and killed this performance with dance routines and all. And I'm like, you mean to tell me y'all didn't talk to each other at all? Y'all didn't have rehearsals. Y'all didn't have, a wardrobe fitting about what y'all was going to wear and perform. Okay, cool. So that pretty much was the end of the movie, where they roll the credits and are like, yeah, and they're still performing all around the world. Here's my issue with this entire movie. Where was Spinderella? Okay? Deidre, you deserve your flowers. When I think of Salt-N-Pepa, I used to think as a kid that she was the end in Salt-N-Pepa, okay? Because whenever you would see this group, they were always all together. They act like she didn't rap on any of the songs. She did. Like, she had one of the best verses. Well, not one of. She had the best verse on What a Man. Because that was one of my songs. But I don't even understand how they never had anything going on with Spin. It was like she was tossed in, and we saw that they hired her, and then she couldn't go out because she needed to practice. Other than that, we just saw her being a DJ in the background, as if she was like, just a background character, as if she was just, a backup dancer. And I'm like, no, there had to have been interactions with Spinderella and these ladies. There has definitely been times when Salt talked to Spinderella outside of Peppa. There has definitely been conversations that Peppa should have had with Spinderella, without Salt. So I'm not understanding how nobody thought to give us a little bit into Spinderella's life. Like, Spinderella got married. She was married to Tammy Roman's ex-husband, Kenny Anderson. She was married to him for a while, and they have a child. At least I know they have one child. They may have more than that. I can't remember. But I know for sure, like, she has kids. She has her own family. I'm pretty sure she was dating hot rappers too. Like, I don't know why they really cut her out. Like, I get this whole, we've disconnected currently. But if you're going to tell a story, tell it right. Tell that story right. Spin should have definitely had a moment where she got to talk to the producers like, hey, well, while they were doing this is what was going on with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that group has been through a lot of stuff, and I think there's a lot of things that weren't said in that group. I feel like they rushed a lot of it, because there's no way that we shouldn't have got, the making of the What a Man video. There's no way we shouldn't have got them winning their Grammy. Like, Peppa came up with a whole nother child, and we didn't see her pregnant. We did not see her pregnant with Egypt in this entire movie. Like, I don't even understand how this was put together. Like, I really feel like if we're going to do some biopics of people's life, y'all got to do it at least like the New Edition story. We watched that for 3 days, okay? And we didn't complain about it. We want more. What's going on with Ralph? What's going on with Bobby? What's going on with Mike? Like, I just really wish that this movie could have been more. And I wish that Spinderella, she would have gotten her flowers. And I wish that Spinderella would have gotten an input on how she was. I mean, like, even the girl who was playing her, I feel like she said a total of 4 lines in this entire movie. There's no way she should have only gotten 4 lines when Spinderella was the 3rd member, honestly. Because I feel like Salt-N-Pepa, they really need to go talk to Run DMC. And the reason why I say that is because Run DMC, their name was Run and DMC, but we have never forgotten Jam Master Jay. Okay? He was always a part of the group. He was always their DJ. And we are never going to forget that. You know what I'm saying? You don't forget the DJ. because they are what? A part of the group. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I will talk to you guys in the next review. I will definitely be reviewing the Wendy Williams movie. And I'm really going to see how much of a mess that is. So go ahead and like, comment, and share. Go ahead and subscribe as well. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.